The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Commodore.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West.
Right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch.
I'm your host, Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
He reads everything.
Hello there, you lucky devils. You better bet your frosted bippies he reads everything. I hope you're enjoying your free episodes for Christmas. We'll be right back on the whole Zodiac thing right after Christmas. In the meantime, I'm uploading classic episodes, including polishing off the classic series on the phony kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby. Before I forget, yesterday I was interviewed by this fellow, Stephen something. Luigi Mangione indicted on terrorism. Oh, I see. If you kill the CEO of a big pharma, big bank, big insurance company, that's terrorism. But anyway, his name is Stephen Snyder. I better. Stephen Snyder, the author of The Art, The Secret History of Psy-War, Conspiratainment and the Shattering of Reality, and The Minotaur, a Kubrick Odyssey. He has a podcast called The Farm. I can share those links right now. Copy link address. He interviewed me yesterday. We spoke for about 3 hours, and believe it or not, he barely got a word in edgewise. If you're just in love with the sound of my voice, you're going to love this podcast. It's about 3 hours of Stephen saying about 5 words and me handling all the rest of it. I do not know when it will be uploaded. So here's the Spotify link and the Apple podcast link, iTunes link or whatever. Where the hell are we? Apple Podcasts called The Farm. But it's not about farming. It is not about farming. Trigger warning, it's about conspiracies. It's about disinfo props. It's about... Okay. I might as well put up the link to his book. I didn't mean to make it sound so... I should give you the link to his book. I have not read the book. I hope you have time to read the book. I wonder... Yep, here it is. I can show you this. Okay, here's the book. And I'll get you the link right here. The Art, The Secret History of Psy-War. Since 2000, the reality we all know and love has gone the way of the dodo bird. He seemed very smart and not nearly as crazy as I sound. So, although I don't know if he's from Canada or what, he does have funny pronunciations of the occasional word. So I don't know. Sometimes they're from Canada. But it was great. It was a great experience. He just he asked me one question and I talked for 3 hours. That's basically what happened yesterday. Okay, that's that for that. But I don't know when exactly that episode's going to be going live. So let's check some news. First, let me get this out of the way before a whole bunch of people come on here and get mad. I don't know if you've ever coached like girls teams, boys teams. I've done both, and I've been an umpire. I was a really good umpire for baseball and softball. Not so much football and basketball, but I was a pretty good coach and an outstanding umpire. And one thing I learned is this. Let me got the sound ready here. One thing I've learned is this. Boys need a pyramid of command. They need a team captain, a couple co-captains. They need a quarterback, and then everybody follows the quarterback. They need a captain and a couple lieutenants, and then underneath those, they need a couple of some sergeants, and then the enlisted men. Men need a hierarchy, a chain of command. They are dogs. They need a leader of the pack. Girls must all be treated the same. I don't care if it's a football team, the quarterback-s, all the players, they must all be treated the same. If you're a pimp, all bitches must be treated the same. Let me give you an example right now.
So last night we read Time magazine where Caitlin Clark was named Athlete of the Year. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover?
I rest my case. All girls must be treated the same. Times Person of the Year. Why not put the whole league? Well, I guess they would all fit on the cover. I don't know. But oh. As Popeye used to say, wimmick. Is that it for the news? Now, what about these drones? By the way, they're in New Jersey. New Jersey drones. I have not had time Where's the New York Post on this? There's a map of drone sightings. Where's the New York Post? Here we go. Drone sightings live updates. New Jersey mayor rips disruptive. You don't need to hear that. Rips dismissive FBI White House drone briefing with local officials. The thing is, they're concentrated mostly. Oh, look. This is what I'm looking for, a map. They're concentrated mostly over Fort Monmouth, right? Here's Long Branch, New Jersey. Trenton. Now, they turned Fort Monmouth into condos, right? But I'm sure the military still does. And drones would be exactly the kind of research they would have been doing for the last 75 years at Fort Monmouth, at the U.S. Army Signal Corps laboratories and whatnot. Missing radioactive material in New Jersey sparks drone theories. A New Jersey mayor warned Tuesday that troubling drone sightings, passive-aggressive ads, may be linked to missing radioactive material. Then again, maybe not. What missing radioactive material? We have been talking, I was talking about Fort Monmouth. I will talk about Fort Monmouth again. Look, I just think it's a publicity stunt from some drone manufacturer, but we have a female school shooter No pictures because she's still alive. See, that's how you can tell if the school shooter was a girl. She's still alive. She settled some old scores and she's still alive. And this was at an Abundant Life parochial school. Remember Abundant Life? We're coming back to that real soon. Gender not important at all. Well, maybe that's why she went berserk. Kamala Harris releases another drunk video. They should have an intervention. They really should have an intervention. Now, let me go back to YouTube and bring up some shows you need to watch that are on YouTube right now for free. Let me get you links to these. This one is, there's a Gary Glitter documentary. I have not watched it. It is trigger warning. It is probably not pretty, to coin a phrase. Gary Glitter doc. Free with ads, or, you know, I've been paying for YouTube Premium. I kind of like that. I get the YouTube Music Premium with that. Looked pretty good. Have not actually watched it yet. This is an episode I haven't watched yet. Oh, come on. Copy link address. Let me make sure that works. Okay. It wants to go back to where I left off. So there's that. If I accidentally send you a link where it starts in the middle of the video, I'm not bookmarking it. Rewind to the beginning of the video, okay? This is, remember I said FDR had Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Don't forget the Delano. It matters more than the Roosevelt. Remember I said he had his own private spook? Well, there's a documentary about him being involved in just, you know, FDR spied for J. Edgar Hoover spied for FDR, spied on FDR's political opponents. You do understand this, right? This documentary is probably about that. But I haven't watched the whole thing. I just started watching it. It looks pretty good. Here's the classic documentary, Where's My Rory Cohn? If you want to see a documentary made by a bunch of bitchy queens about a really vicious queen, watch this documentary. It is pretty good. Now, they're going to bleed. They're going to bleed from the eyeballs. They're going to bleed from the stigmata over Ethel Rosenberg. Don't let that put you off. Trust me, she was guilty. But it wasn't just the nuclear secrets, as we're going to come back to real soon. However, watch this documentary. It's a good documentary. But it's really, really, really gay. Really gay doc about Rory Cohn. But it's good. It's a good documentary about Rory Cohn. Like, he didn't have a personal life. His whole life was gossip and politics and really mean about it. You know, he was a real. And remember, he was a personal family friend of the Baldwins. Don't forget that. The Marx Brothers at Night in Casablanca is free on YouTube right now. Here's the Odessa file. Did I ever send you the link to the Odessa file? It's not bad. It's not bad. It's all action. It's, what's his name from The Deer Hunter and Runaway Train? You start listing the movies he's in. Midnight Cowboy. It's a very good film. You know who I'm talking about. John Voight. Another John Voight movie. It's about a guy. It's about he was a child, or he was born right after the war. He's German. He's a journalist. He's a photojournalist. And he goes underground to try to infiltrate the Odessa Ratline organization. It's pretty good. It's full of action. It's well made, and this is a 4K video transfer that you can watch on YouTube right now. This is good. This is good. This is before the fall of Assad. This is Syria's drug empire. This one looks pretty good. I haven't finished watching it, but this is really good. And kind of gives you an idea as to why the United States, among others, turned a blind eye and just let Assad stay in charge of Syria all this time. And why, like ISIS, have such a bug up their butt about trying to overthrow that government, because they supported themselves. Like 80% of their budget was coming from narcotics trafficking, which is not news to some people's ears. This is a pretty good documentary. They pull their punches. They're not nearly as hard on FDR as I could be, but this is about FDR deliberately sandbagging America's war effort for the first couple of years so that England would have their colonies taken away from them, so we could take them, then we could take those colonies away from the Japanese and the Germans. I've told you and I've told you and I've told you, this whole thing about the special relationship is all a myth. It's all propaganda. This is the truth about FDR and Churchill's relationship. And what an asshole FDR could be. It's really good. Yeah, it's a pretty good one. And they still kind of, they don't come right out and say it like I do, but it's a good start. This one, I brought this up talking about Lindbergh and the Rockefeller Institute, the Karlsruhe Institute, and all these institutes being involved in biological warfare research, right? This is a good documentary about the Japanese Project 731 and just how extensive it was, and just how like these guys got full immunity from prosecution for war crimes. They came to the Rockefeller Institute even before the war. His name is Ishiro Ishii. This is a good one. You need to watch this one. It's John Voight without the H, right? It's John Voight, right? John without an H, Voight with an H, not to be confused with Ship for Brains, Tom Voight. Under no circumstances. Delanoy, that's right, channel, Delanoy. From Belgium, right? Certainly the Low Countries. Here's a documentary about Polyakov. Just watch it, and I will go through it sometime, and I will set you straight. There's another. We'll see. We'll see if this is the right one. But anyway, watch this one anyway. Oh, crap. See if that link works. Dmitry Polyakov. I think that's it for now. Oh, Black Money. Yeah, watch this one. This is Frontline. This is good. Frontline, Black Money. Frontline makes good documentaries. Even though, according to Frontline, there was no such thing as communism. There was no such person as Lenin or Marx. They weren't communists. But this is a good one. And if it's anti-capitalist documentaries you're looking for, high-quality ones, subscribe to PBS Frontline. They have like all 45 years of Frontline on PBS is like $4.99 a month. A documentary about one of the Jews who enabled the Holocaust. Jews and the Holocaust. One particular Jew. I watched this a long time ago. I think it's pretty good. Here's a very good documentary about Francisco Franco. Generalissimo Francisco Franco Mahanda? What was his name? Franco was not his like we would call the last name. This is a good one. Francisco Franco. This is a good one. This is a really good documentary about Franco. It's pretty new. In terms of ruthlessness, he made Stalin look like FDR. But thank God he only ran a small country. But we're going to talk about Spain and Portugal and the Cold War in Spain and Portugal. And speaking of Odessa, speaking of all that stuff. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Oh no, this is about... Is this another one? This is about Saudi arms deals. And Prince Bandar. Not just about Prince Bandar, though. No. This is about bribery. Is this one about bribery? Or is Black Money the one about bribery? It's about international bribery. This is going to matter a lot when we come back to Jeffrey Epstein and the company and the enterprise and Bill Casey and I think the Tylenol poisonings, which I'm going to get back to the Tylenol poisonings in just a second. Prince Bandar and bribery. But it's not just about him and bribery. Okay, that should do it for tonight. And I've started to get ready to do episodes about Herbert Mullen, John Linley Frazier, because we have to anyway, and Ed Kemper. You will not believe what I found out about those guys. What's this one? Here's one about the Golden Triangle. I don't think they mentioned Tony Poe, though, by name. So one more, Vietnam and Golden Triangle. Now, yesterday, Stephen brought up Paul Dorr, who's this Zodiac suspect who sounds a lot like a younger Hal Snook. And he may have worked with Tony Poe in Korea. He was too young for World War II. His name's Paul Dorr. So if you guys know anything about this guy, let me know. Supposed Zodiac suspect. He was a member of the Minutemen, right-wing group, that kind of thing. He sounds an awful lot like Enrique Tarrio. He sounds an awful lot like Enrique Tarrio back in the day. Sounds a lot like that. Okay, let me get... And one more time, does anybody know who the guy is with the red arrow? Does anybody have any idea who he's supposed to be? If you do, let me know. And read these two books when you get a chance. The Power Elite by Charles Wright Mills. The Power Elite, 1956. And Behemoth by Franz Neumann. Franz Neumann. He was a Nazi defector like 1944, and he talks about the stuff I talk about. So those are two books that I've obviously shaped my mindset long, long ago. So, victim Mary, this is the Tylenol poisonings, okay? Mary Magdalene Farron Reiner. She was the one who just had her fourth baby. She came home she had complications. She had a little infection. And she took some Tylenol laced with cyanide and promptly died. Born April 15th, 1955 in Winfield, Illinois. Grew up and still lived there. This is she. Born in Villa Park in DuPage County. She still lived in DuPage County. Lived and died in DuPage County. Got married, had 4 kids, dropped dead from poisoned Tylenol. Her father was Howard Farron. That's pronounced Farron. There's a couple of people in here with Quebecois names, and Farron is a Quebecois name. Hi, Anthony. Her husband was born in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So was Mary Brunner. I don't know if that means they knew each other, because he was younger than Mary Brunner. When was Mary Brunner born? A few years before this. She's born 1945 or something. She's born 1945. No, that's not her. Born 1943. So she would have been quite a bit older. Maybe she babysat that. Maybe she babysat him. Who knows? So I just mentioned that very briefly. He was born in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He did graduate from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He was a branch manager for Kraft Foods wholesale distribution. Like Kraft cheese, Velveeta. They make Velveeta. The worst. I lived in Champaign-Urbana a couple of times, and the crap factory there, it's just will knock you down. They make ranch dressing there. Yeah, his father. So Mary's father-in-law, Eugene Reiner, worked for Kraft Foods. They did move around the country somewhat. They lived in Montana, lived in Sioux City, Iowa. Then they came back to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. This is another job of his, I think, in the grocery. That was her father-in-law. Now, her father, Howard Anthony Farron, served on the USS Greenwich in the 1950s. USS Greenwich Bay, born 1929. He was in the Navy from 48 to 52 during the Korean War. But from 49, they actually went to the Middle East Task Force. Red Sea, Persian Gulf, and Indian Ocean in 1949. This is when, so one of their ports of call would have been where the shepherds were living at that time. That doesn't mean they met. But Paul Avery's stepfather was also stationed there at that time, after the war. Maybe this means something, maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know yet. Recife, Brazil, Lisbon, Portugal. Every major Mediterranean, Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, and Red Sea city, as well as several African ones. Malta, Bombay, and Madras. Madras is the city where, it was called Madras in those days, and that's where the shepherds were based when they're doing their missionary work. This is where Annie Besant lived. This is where... Yeah, check out Stephen's book and his podcast, because he knew exactly what I was talking about when I said the shepherds lived there. He seemed to understand exactly what the hell I was talking about. So I think he knows what the hell he's talking about. Lebanon, Mombasa, Kenya, Cannes, Karachi. Okay? The People to People program, carrying drugs and other medical supplies to Arab and African nations. Important tool of diplomacy in the region. Visited by many dignitaries on this tour. When he was in the Navy, he went on this tour. King Ibn Saud of Saudi Arabia, the Shah of Iran, he keeps coming up. Emperor Haile Selassie, who his followers, Rastafarians, believe he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. You know that, right? That's what they believe. And the Sheikh of Kuwait, among others. Distinguished themselves in Bahrain as Air France planes crashed there in June 1950 while attempting to make early morning landings on a flat, fog-shrouded airfield. 6 search and rescue missions. The Suez Crisis evacuated American dependents and civilians. For what it's worth, this is what Mary's father did when he was in the Navy. They don't say what he did after the Navy. But technically the ship was a seaplane tender. So these big flying boats, and they would take care of them at sea. This is her brother Howard and her sister Catherine, I think. I didn't find anything. He moved to Los Angeles, whatever that's worth. Registered Democrat in San Bernardino in 1960. A lot of shepherds lived there. Here's where it's important. Howard Jr., there was Farron Publishing, but I don't think it's not him. He didn't own Farron Publishing Company. Mars, The New Frontier, Lowell's Hypothesis, Wells Allen Webb. They published educational books, and they published a lot of books on science, like they published a lot of textbooks, and they published a lot of books on science and things for kids, beginning in 1960-ish, and very, very busy in the late 1970s. Based in Belmont, California. Parenting and education books. He was an illustrator. I think he worked there, but I don't know how close he was related. The Story of Boda by Ellen M. Kane. I don't think they operated a printing plant. Farron is not a very common name. There's a Floyd Farron, who was a draftsman for Convair Aircraft in San Diego. Remember the other guy who worked at Convair Aircraft I talked about? Also known as, before it was Convair, it was Vultee. Remember I just talked about that? I'll come back to it. You need to get plugged in. You need to, after Christmas, you need to pay the $10 a month. He's a draftsman at Convair Air Corporation. She's French-Canadian, right? They are actually, she is actually Quebecois. This matters because of the other. Remember the Kellerman girl, the 12-year-old. The mother's father owned a printing plant, and the other person's aunt worked at, was a blueprint operator. So when this draftsman taking the designs from the engineers and actually drawing up all the drawings, all the stuff that Julius Rosenberg was passing to the Soviets. It wasn't just nuclear secrets. That was a drop in the bucket. It just so happened that Ethel's brother worked at Los Alamos, and he actually, as a machinist and engineer, he made one of those components that went into the Fat Man implosion device. But Julius traveled all over the country, all the defense plants, including this one. This is 1950, 1948, 1950. He died in 1950. This guy dies in 1950. He's in the 1950 census, but then he's dead. No. Okay, he's in the 1950 phone book, but he's not in the 1950 census. He dies in the first half of 1950. This is right after the Rosenbergs get busted. And his name is Farron. And he draws these blueprints, which are then duplicated on the blueprint machine. It's like a giant Xerox machine, but it's a very precise way of duplicating drawings, so there's no distortion. But I can't prove that they're directly related, but the brother, Mary's brother, had moved to California and was an illustrator, a draftsman, and worked for this publishing company, for whatever all that's worth. Yeah, this is... No, okay, this is her aunt. Her aunt was a blueprint operator. I mentioned that in a previous episode. This is why now it's why I'm focusing on her in this episode, because her aunt had been a blueprint operator at the torpedo plant, the U.S. Navy ordnance factory that made torpedoes. So that's two Farrons who would have been contacted by Julius Rosenberg as a normal part of his job. He would be looking at the blueprints and then measuring things and, doing quality control work. Two other members of that family worked at a biscuit company. I don't know what they did. I don't know what kind of horrible things go on at biscuit factories. Okay, same thing. One Tylenol, one capsule laced with cyanide. We'll come back to how. If these people were targeted, how could they be targeted? Because that pharmacy, remember on the map, was way out of the way. The two pharmacies that were way out of the way. The two, besides the Kellermans, the two families who look like they might have been targeted were Reiner, and her maiden name is Farron, the Reiners, and Paula Prince, the stewardess. Maybe I'll bring that map up again really quick. They look like they went out of their way. And it just so happens these are the three, and actually the Kellermans. They got off the main thoroughfares for some reason and targeted a couple other pharmacies. This Reiner, Prince, and Kellerman. And Kellerman almost looks like a suspect, but that doesn't necessarily mean she is a suspect, okay? These are rough draft episodes, and this is what you get for free. But this case gets more and more interesting, and we haven't even got to the guy who was writing the letters to Johnson & Johnson. And by the way, Woody Johnson was alive and helping to run the company at the time that all this happened, I think, right? He was in his 30s at the time, right? He would have been in early 30s or something. She was born in Omaha, Nebraska, November 1946. That's when the Ramseys are living there. That's when John Bennett Ramsey's growing up in Omaha. And her father was Lloyd Nash Prince of Omaha. Paula never got married, apparently. She's 35 years old, beautiful stewardess, never got married, drank like a fish. Doesn't mean she deserved to die. Omaha, a former city editor of the Sioux City Journal. Not the Farrons, but Mary Reiner's father-in-law. At one time, they lived in Sioux City when he was working for Kraft or some food distribution company. They lived in Sioux City, Iowa. Former city editor of the Sioux City Journal. Mr. Prince became a city editor here in 1916 when he came to Sioux City from Portsmouth, Ohio. Left in 1922 when he joined the Epley Hotel staff at Omaha. Secretary to the Epley Charity Foundation, and served on the board of directors of the Epley Memorial Airport at Omaha. So he knew Jay, or James, as you prefer, Dudley Ramsey. No question about it. No question about it. And he was a newspaper editor. Vice president and partner at the Omaha Airport Inn. So he may have collected blackmail information on visiting VIPs. That's just a speculation, but it's possible. Newspaper editor who owns a hotel. What do you think is going on? Where do you think he gets the news from? Where do you think newspapers get their news from? Wayside Inn in Omaha and the Wirt Hotel at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. What goes on at Jackson Hole, Wyoming? What interesting people visit Jackson Hole, Wyoming? To do what once a year? Born in Appomattox, Virginia. Director of the Omaha Boys Club. Well, what do you know about that? During the war, he worked for Congressman Vincent F. Harrington. He was as a newspaper editor. He went to Washington and worked as the press secretary on the staff for Congressman Vincent F. Harrington during the war. Was a Democratic representative from Iowa, commissioned to the United States Army Air Forces after the Pearl Harbor attack, resigned from Congress when President Roosevelt disallowed members of Congress from serving in the military. Died of a heart attack at the age of 40. Dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 40 while serving at the big U.S. Air Force Base in England during World War II in 1943. You know, cyanide poisoning can be mistaken for a heart attack. Born in Sioux City, Iowa, University of Notre Dame. Played football for Newt Rockne. He was a second stringer on the Four Horsemen football team. Instructor and athletic director at Columbia University. Jaffe went to Columbia but was athletic director and football coach at Fordham University, right? I'm going to start watching my own show. Oh, it's going to take forever. I think he was coach at Fordham. Returned to Sioux City. Worked at the Continental Mortgage Company. Treasurer and assistant manager. Later vice president and general manager. Serving in the Army Air Corps as security control officer. What exactly did Sam Carr and his sister Frances do at that air base during the war where they were testing the Norden bomb site? Counterintelligence Corps base security. Air Corps as security control officer. Suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 40. He's buried in Cambridge, England, so you can't even do an autopsy. So her dad worked for him, apparently. The 9th Troop Carrier Command Headquarters. If I'm right, and John Bennett, James Dudley Ramsey actually flew transport airplanes, that might have been, he might have known him. They would have met at the Officers Club for sure. This is Paula Prince's father, worked for that congressman. And her father was the newspaper editor, and he was on the airport commission in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Paula. Flight attendant for United Airlines based at O'Hare International Airport. She bought the fatal bottle of Tylenol. Well, she bought a bottle of Tylenol at the Walgreens just around the corner from her apartment on the north side of Chicago. And this is Gina Gilson Kellerman on the right. There's a little bit of a family resemblance. I don't know if that means anything. They both both Kellermans and Paula Prince worked at United Airlines at the airport. She could have put some poison. She could have told Paula, "Here, you can have some of my Tylenol." I'm not saying she did. I'm saying she could have. This is a surveillance camera photograph, a still frame. This is Paula at the Walgreens where she purchased her last bottle of Tylenol. There were 23 capsules left out of a bottle of 24. That's another thing. This victim did not buy the 50 count bottle of gel caps. She bought the 24 count. The prime suspect, I'll get to him next. Well, he wrote letters. He's convicted of writing letters to Johnson & Johnson, extortion letters. That's him in this photograph. I don't think he was hanging around. I think all the bottles were planted on the 28th, but I could easily be wrong about that. Is this guy in this photograph him? The only reason I bring it up is, you see these two guys in short sleeve shirts and T-shirts? It was 83, 84 degrees that day. Why is this guy wearing a jacket? Is it because he's got something in his pocket that he's putting it back on the shelves? We'll never know. They think that this guy's too short to be the suspect that we're going to talk about in the next episode of the Stones Unturned podcast. But this is his yearbook picture. I'll show you really quick. This guy. And what the hell does this guy have to do with money laundering and bribery among the elite and among the corporate world? What does he have to do with that? Let alone, and this is another case where we get some bullshit extortion letters connected to a series of supposedly random serial murders. Curtis Harrington was a friend of Cameron. Well, I'll be damned. Film director Curtis Harrington? We'll have to check into that. Hi, Gary. I will look into that. Curtis Harrington, American film director. Was he born in Sioux City, Iowa? Experimental films and horror. Oh, that's right. And queer cinema. Let's see. Born in Los Angeles. Grew up in Beaumont. A lot of shepherds lived around Beaumont. Occidental College, USC. UC Los Angeles. Looks like he just lived on the West Coast, so I don't know. Doesn't look like it. That was a very good catch, though. Thanks for bringing that guy up again. You probably have to bring him up again later. Directed Night Tide? Okay. He didn't direct. It's on an episode of Mystery Science Theater. What's his name again? Curtis Harrington? Let me look at his filmography again. Not Hollywood. Was it Hollywood by Night? Filmography. Night Tide. Queen of Blood. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo. Ruby Matahari. The Cat Creature. Killer Bees. He directed Killer Bees. I did not know that. The Dead Don't Die. Legend of Jesse James. He directed 2 episodes of Beretta. 1 episode of the TV show of Logan's Run. A couple episodes of Charlie's Angels. He directed an episode of Vegas. Wonder Woman. Hotel. Dynasty. Twilight Zone. The reboot of the Twilight Zone. He's acting in Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome. He acted in Ironside. Gods and Monsters. Huh, I'll be darned. It's worth looking into. We'll see. Just because he was born in L.A. does, not that many white people go back that many generations in L.A. Okay, is that enough to satisfy your morbid curiosity for tonight? So whatever it's all worth. So the next episode, we'll take a look at this guy in this yearbook. He's a character all by himself. I don't really have a cliffhanger. Just good night, God bless. And for crying out loud, will you please spay and neuter your cannibals? I'm Professor Thomas Henry Horan, asking you to please stay plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
He reads everything.
Better bet your bippies he reads everything. Click that join button. You can wait till after Christmas, but click that join button, okay? And I'll see you real soon.